Thanksgiving and happy fall. Wow, I can't believe the colors are changing already. If you've not been out in the country anytime recently, get out there. I was out there earlier today and looking very, very pretty. I think it's going to be an absolutely gorgeous fall. And Thanksgiving, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's here already. Anyways, welcome to my newsletter. I hope you guys enjoy this. I decided to put a little synopsis at the front here, and I've actually created a couple of videos that I'm going to attach after my little welcome video here that talk about two key things: refinances. I'm getting more and more calls these days about people want to consolidate debts, and above and beyond that, utilizing their equity in their homes to help grow their portfolio, be it potentially rental properties or even their TFSAs, RSPs. So I've gone ahead and put a little bit of a synopsis there as to how you can go about doing this. And I've introduced a really cool app that gives us some great breakdowns there. So by all means, check out that afterwards. And then of course, a market update. You know, people are constantly calling and asking, and I've clued in that while I'm very much aware of what's happening in the real estate market as I deal with this on a consistent basis, most people don't. So I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to share with you guys a little bit of my insight as to what's been transpiring in this real estate market. I'm sure some of you have heard through the news and through friends. It's been a little bit of a frustrating time, but yeah, check out that little update. On top of that, for those of you that still like to read, don't want to necessarily listen to me as you're washing dishes or whatever it is you got going on, scroll down and I've shared with you a couple different articles. One of the first ones I've got on there is how to stop your dog from leash pulling. If you're like so many other people out there during this whole COVID change up in life, you've gone ahead and got yourself a new puppy. I know we personally have. We love him. He's a great guy. But one thing that he's not really good at least not thus far, is learning how to walk beside me. He loves to kind of pull on it. And while that's great for trying to build up my muscles, it's probably not a good long-term plan. So if you're like us, you've gotten yourself a new puppy and your dog's just not wanting to listen, hopefully that will be a very helpful, informative article for you. The rest of you can move on to the other articles. So another very hot topic for a lot of my clients is, does it still make sense, Dan, for me to buy a home in light of how expensive houses are? Perhaps I should rent. And there's a really cool study that was done recently by Royal LePage that talks about, does it make sense to rent versus buy? So check out that article. From according to the analysis, across Canada, we're saying it still makes more sense. The big reason being that, keep in mind, it might cost you more monthly, but a good chunk of that is going towards the principal. So a good chunk of what you're paying on the mortgage is actually going towards the principal. Hence, your actual cost, money out of pocket, is still significantly less. So even if the house doesn't grow, which I suspect it will grow, there's a lot of advantages there. So check out that article. Market update, I already talked about that. Blind bidding. So some people I've heard from the Liberal government that there was some talks about, we're going to ban this idea of blind bids, or blind auctions, where you cannot just list a house at, let's say $1, and then you get a whole bunch of offers. They want to do more of what we call open auction style. So I've got put an article in there that talks about, whether or not that will make any difference. And it does talk a little bit about Australia, for those of you who may not have heard, because they actually adhere to the open auction style of buying and selling houses. And according to the stats, their market is actually doing very, very well if you are an owner in Australia. And that may help us clue into whether or not our issue really is the bidding process, as much as it can be frustrating, or is it perhaps inventory and other stuff there? So check out that article. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a beautiful time of year. It's a good time to get out and just enjoy these beautiful fall colors. So I've got a little article that talks about some great trails in and around the Waterloo region. So check that out. Maybe these are some trails that you've never heard of before. And if so, I hope you enjoy. And lastly, for those of you who are fortunate enough to be considering retiring in the near future, not me, I wish, but I'm not there. I've come across a great little article that talks about some steps you can take to help ensure that your retirement will be a great experience. So by all means, check that out. All right, hope you enjoy the follow-up video. And if I could be of service to you, your friends, or anybody else, colleagues at work, by all means, have them reach out to me. If they're not sure because they don't know me, perhaps a video like this would be helpful, so they can kind of see the wealth of knowledge I can bring to the table for them. Have yourself a great time this long weekend. Happy Thanksgiving. I want to take a couple minutes to discuss with you the topic of refinancing. I'm getting a lot of calls these days with these really, really low rates in the mortgage industry, with clients asking me about their refinance options, especially in regards to consolidating debt. Many people aren't aware of this great opportunity, especially in light of the fact that homes have increased in value so much so that they've now got this untapped equity. And so meanwhile, they possibly are paying very high interest rates on their line of credit, student loans, MasterCard, you name it. And sometimes it's not even about the rate, it's even just the monthly obligation. And they just are having a hard time keeping up, not being able to enjoy time with their family and friends. So I'm having a lot of consultations with clients, reviewing their financial situation, almost like a quasi financial advisor. And I'm saying, okay, where is our money? What assets do you have? What can we do to help perhaps make life a little bit more enjoyable? So recently, our developers over at Mortgage Architects have designed a really cool app that does an excellent job of breaking down the numbers for us in a very visually stimulating, understandable manner, which I think a lot of you will appreciate. So I thought I'm going to take a couple minutes and put a video out here. This is a free app. You can go in and you can download this through the store, and then you can go ahead and create your own scenario. So I'm going to take a few minutes. We're going to jump over from my desktop here into my cell phone, because this is designed for cell phone usage. And let's run it through. That way you can do it yourself, or by all means, if you'd rather have me run one of these scenarios, just reach out to me. Shoot me a text or an email, and it'd be my pleasure to help. All right, without further ado, let's go to the cell phone.
Welcome to my cell phone. I've already gone ahead and downloaded this app. I've gone ahead and saved it. Here it is, my Mortgage Architect app, and there she is. I've already prepared an example so that we can save ourselves a little bit of time, and I'm just going to briefly go through this. But if you download this app, you're going to notice there's a lot of really cool tools in here. You can look into things such as, how much would I qualify for in a mortgage if I was to buy a property, things like the stress test, land transfer tax, what kind of closing costs. And you can even create several scenarios and compare them side by side. Do you want to go variable or fixed? GDS, TDS, and so forth and so on. But today, we're going to focus on the Refinance Analyzer. Okay. Now, typically, you'll go in here and you can create what we call create a new scenario, and it'll allow you the option to go step by step at just answering some basic questions. What is the approximate value of your home? How much time is left on your mortgage? How many years is your mortgage amortized over? For instance, 23 years, 25 years. What's your current interest rate? Do you have a fixed rate, a variable, whatever else? I've gone ahead and already created a scenario just to help fast forward things a bit here. The first page, I've gone ahead and called this example at the top. It gives us kind of a summary, but I'm going to go into the edit section. You guys can do this anytime once you have your Refinance Analyzer up and running. And we're going to go through each step. So off the get-go, I'm taking a property, I'm making a number of assumptions here, and I'm assuming the value of the house is $800,000. Okay, the maximum loan to value for a typical refinance is 80% loan to value. There are the odd exceptions with B lenders. We can perhaps get a bit more there. Again, best to reach out to me if you have a scenario like that. Current balance in this example, we're saying the mortgage has got $250,000 remaining outstanding. The current rate was 3.1. Okay, we got 2 years remaining on this term right here, down to 22 months, almost 2 years. Okay. The renewal date we have down is December 31st of 2023. Oh, sorry, there it is. And we got 2 years remaining on the term. Sorry, and we are amortized over 22 years left. Okay. Now, in the debt section, we've gone ahead and I've just thrown a bunch of things in here. Things like the schooling, long-term loans, car loans, and MasterCards. Okay. I've put in not only what the interest rate is, because you'll see later on that that's important, but I've also put down what are our monthly obligations. Okay, in some of these cases, like the MasterCard, we're assuming you're just paying interest only, because that's often the case. Okay, but things like the car, we are paying both the interest and the principal. But even then, for some people, it can make it very stressful having to keep up with all these different debts. It's great you're paying off the car, but in the meanwhile, it's just making things very stressful from one month to the next. Okay. In this section here, we put in the various costs, because there are some costs that we have to factor for, above and beyond perhaps interest savings, things like the legal expenses, your discharge fee, an appraisal fee. So I've gone ahead and already filled all these items in. And if you click here, we did have it in there. It looks like it might have gone out. So let's just say 400 discharge fee. Okay, there we go. Okay, appraisal fee. Other fees will go 0. Okay. All right. And now we're going to go to the new mortgage. So we've gone ahead and said, okay, in order to consolidate all these debts, to pay everything off, we're going to have to get a new mortgage of 283 in this example. And we've got technically 356,000 more in equity we could pull out. But in this example, we just want to try to keep our monthly debts lower, or our monthly obligations lower, and we want to reduce the interest we're paying. Okay, there's an example of a rate. We're assuming there will be about 20 years remaining on this mortgage, or just shy of that. So we're going to stick with the same term as what was there. So we're matching current. Okay, we're going to continue to pay them monthly. We're not going to do any increased payments, anything like that. If you want to get into those scenarios, by all means you can. But there's our full breakdown. And we're not taking any extra money out. Now, we have said we're going to cover the costs, the legal expenses, stuff like that. I've indicated that that's all going to be covered in the mortgage. And that was back on the previous page here. It says total penalties and fees. And we're going to cap that into the mortgage itself. Okay. Now, once you've gone ahead and filled in all the questions, you can go back here and it gives you kind of a summary page. And what's cool is it says, okay, initially it's going to cost you more. But once we get in this example up to about 2 years in, we are actually going to save $3,800. And over the course of the mortgage, we're going to save a lot more than that by consolidating these debts as opposed to the other ones. What I like to do is right here is to look at the our analysis. This is a quick little breakdown analysis, summary analysis. It says this is the interest on the blue you were paying, and there's the green, so you're paying a lot less in this example. And then, of course, we do have to factor for the various expenses that you would have to cover. Okay, so that all makes a lot of sense there. And then the other thing to keep in mind is not just about how much interest are you saving, but are you going to save some money month to month? And what I often say to clients is if you are, then you can perhaps put some of that additional money into a retirement or even try to hit the mortgage and pay it down much quicker. So in this example here, you're paying your current payments are $22, $21, $61 monthly to cover the mortgage and everything else. And we're going to reduce that. So you're going to have a savings of almost $700 right here at the bottom. So that's quite a bit of money. Often I'll say to clients, why don't take half of that and do principal pay downs every month, and maybe take the other half and put it into a vacation account, or put it towards buying your new car in the future. And then again, there's that summary at the end. Another option, which is quite nice, is we can go here and we can look at the PDF version, which I find is a lot more detailed, a lot of details in there. And it kind of repeats what I said earlier, but the cool thing about this one is that you can actually email it to yourself or share it to like a family member or a friend, and it gives you a full side-by-side analysis of your current situation versus your proposed switch up. Okay? So hopefully you found that helpful. Now, I do get a lot of calls from clients saying, hey, Dan, I want to grow my real estate portfolio. I want to, get ahead financially. It's great I can pay off these debts, but how can I get ahead for the long run? Now, unfortunately, with houses being as expensive as they are, it's requiring larger and larger refinances, and perhaps you don't have enough equity in the property, which is what I'm often finding. So perhaps to think outside the box, consider using a refinance not just to pay off pre-existing debts, but perhaps to help grow your overall portfolio in the coming years. Now, a couple ways you can do that is, of course, pulling equity of the house to buy a rental property. But again, if you don't have enough money in there, or maybe you just don't qualify to borrow enough from the house, as per this example here, we've got lots of equity, but perhaps the client doesn't qualify because of GDS and TDS ratios. Again, always a good idea to give me a call on that. But in the meanwhile, what you could do is you could pull some money out of the property, put that into your RSPs, and then down the road, perhaps once you build those RSPs enough, or maybe a TFSA, then you can utilize that money towards a down payment on the house. The other thing you can do is by refinancing your home, you can actually increase the amortization of the overall mortgage, hence reducing your monthly obligation. And then you can take the additional monies and put that into a TFSA again, so down the road you can buy a rental or whatever it is you want to do there. The other thing I'm finding with a lot of people nowadays is that we don't have pension plans. And as much as we want to be responsible, it's not as much fun putting money to RSPs or TFSAs. We'd much rather perhaps put that money towards a vacation or whatever else. So we really need that obligation to force us to put money aside. So I've found for some clients, it makes sense to utilize a thing like a refinance to pull some additional monies out. So I'm going to show you and then put that into the RSPs. And then because you have to pay your mortgage, you will pay the mortgage, and then that money that you've invested will be there in your RSPs, and that will grow. And the best part about it, it will actually grow at a much faster rate and set you up in a much better position. So I'm finding a lot of clients are saying, hey, with rates this low, this is a good time to take some equity out of my house and try to grow my RSP portfolio. So I've gone ahead and also created another example here underneath the Refinance Analyzer. Oh, and I've gone ahead and called this one the portfolio growth scenario here. And again, we're going to go right into the edit side of things. And everything I've kept exactly the same as what we had on the previous one. Okay, $800,000 value, pre-existing mortgage. We want to, of course, pay off the debts. That's the first and foremost always, especially bad debts with high interest rates. But in this case, if you look down here underneath the new mortgage, I've said we want to take out an additional $50,000 towards the home. The other thing I've gone ahead and done is I've changed the amortization right here to 30 years. Okay, and we're going to see that in a few seconds. We look at the analysis. What is that going to do to our payments? How much extra money we're going to have in hand every single month and every single year? And that's about it. So now going back to the previous page, we're going to look at the analysis here. I'm not going to bother emailing it right now, but not a bad idea. That way it's bigger. If you're anything like me, this is a little hard to see on these small cell phones. But as you can see, here's an example of the proposed solution, the new mortgage. So it's going to be much higher. But if you look here, our current payments are going to save us roughly $10,000 a year. So that's $10,000 if you're disciplined enough that you can put into TFSA, let that grow, plus the additional $50,000, and eventually you can perhaps use that if you want to buy a rental property if that's your aspirations. Okay, it gives us a full breakdown as to what you're looking at every single month, and are you going to save money? Okay, so the ironic part about this is that you're actually borrowing an additional $50,000 on the mortgage, and yet somehow, because you are amortizing over 30 years as opposed to say 20 years, you're actually paying less per month, which means you can grow your portfolio. And then of course down the road, once you have you've built up your RSPs, you can go ahead and sell those, pay off the loan, or pay off the house a little quicker. Okay, so there's the full breakdown. If you'd like, we can definitely do a meeting through Zoom or in office if you'd like, and we can kind of go through this in a lot more detail. I'm going to jump from my cell phone here over to my computer again, because my good friend at BMO, Greg Gingrich, which I highly recommend, he's a financial advisor, has shared with me a calculator that shows that it can be used for many things, but what I've gone ahead is used the same scenario of $50,000, and I'm going to show you how investing or a lump sum up front of $50,000 as opposed to putting aside $200 a month, because roughly $50,000 will cost you about $200 extra on a mortgage, and you can see that through this calculator here. It will lead to a much higher overall return. So let's go over to the computer again, and let me share with you those findings.
Okay, welcome to my screen, and this is a great tool I've been given by my friend at BMO. And what I'll do is I'll share with you his contact information below, or by all means you can reach out to me. And yeah, I'd highly recommend you reach out to Greg, as he can help you with your RSPs or TFSAs or anything else. Very, very smart guy, has lots to share with you there. So, all right, here's our two scenarios. The first one, I've gone ahead and said that we're going to put zero down. We want to get our RSP portfolio growing because we may not have a pension plan, or our pension plan isn't big enough, or we just want to be in a better financial position in the long run because perhaps we want to do some more traveling or whatever the situation may be. Now in this example, I said zero down, and we are going to, so it looks like saying 2,000, there we go, zero down, and we're going to contribute $250 monthly. Okay, I'll share with you guys a link to this site as well, so you can run your own scenarios. And we're going to take about 20 years. I don't know, you can do 10 years, 5 years, 30 years. Let's go with 20. Hopefully we've got plenty of time to build up that portfolio. I've gone with what I consider to be a relatively conservative investment. I mean, it's not as conservative as a bond, or at least not a government bond or a GIC, but on the flip side, it's not as aggressive as perhaps the stock market, which can produce much higher yields. So in this case, we're going to do it with a 7% return. Okay, I've gone ahead and done the exact same thing on the other side here. Okay, so you can see my screen. But in this scenario, I'm assuming we're going to put $50,000 down because we've gone ahead and pulled 50,000 equity out of the home. In doing so, I realize that the client or whoever I'm dealing with here is going to have a higher mortgage payment every single month. And I know that's roughly with the rates where they are today, it's going to run you about $200 monthly. So in this case, we're going to now reduce our minimum or our RSP contribution from $250 as per this side here to only $50 a month. Okay, the other $200 that we would put in RSPs, we're now going to put that into the mortgage instead to kind of pay that off. Okay. Now, again, 20 years, 7%, 7%. Now look at the findings as we roll down here, scroll down. And it's giving us a nice little breakdown year by year. And as you see, the first year or first 5 years in this example, where we've done just a 250 monthly, we will have roughly $15,000 deposited, and we've made an extra 2340. That's good. But if you look over here, assuming you would have invested 50,000 off the get-go, you're going to have 53,000, and you've actually grown 21,000. So significant jump in just 5 years. And as you go into your 10-year, 15, and 20 years, as per this example, and it gives us a nice summary at the very bottom, you can see that your total deposit would have been 60,000 over the course of 20 years, where in this case, it's practically the same, but we've only done $50 per month and the 50,000 up front. Okay, your savings growth though, we've now grown the portfolio by 165,000 to a new value of 227,000, as opposed to this side where we've only grown it by 66,000, and hence the value of the overall portfolio is only 126,000. So come retirement, you're going to have significantly more money that you can just utilize for your retirement plans. Hopefully this makes sense. If not, by all means, we can jump on Zoom or we can meet in the office sometime, and I'd be more than happy to share with you some more information regarding how you can grow your RSPs and utilize the equity in your home. If need be, I can definitely introduce you to my good friend Greg there, and I'm sure he can do a much better job of explaining to you the financial benefits of the TFSA and RSPs and whatever else then. Okay. So thanks again for your time. It's been a pleasure sharing with you this video. Hopefully you found it informative. Remember, in order to run these scenarios, follow the link, download my app, and then go nuts. You can do all your own personal stuff, run whatever scenarios you want. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I believe you can even text me right through the app itself. Okay, I'd love to help you. I'd love to help set you guys up for more. Good afternoon and happy fall. I can't believe the leaves are changing already. And as you know, Christmas will be just around the corner. So I guess it's time for us to start considering buying presents and doing what we got to do there. One of those presents I know many people this day and age would love to have would be a home. And being in real estate, sometimes I forget that not everybody is as in tune to what's transpiring in the real estate industry as I am, as I deal with this on a consistent basis. I'm sure many of you have heard about in the news and radio and seen articles here and there, but maybe it'd be good for me to perhaps go over the recent stats, recent history, reflecting predominantly on this past September and kind of what's transpiring out there. So that when you're talking to your friends, colleagues, whatever else, you can say, okay, well, here's what my realtor has got to say about what's happening out there. So I'm going to dive into it a little bit. There's going to be a lot of information I've posted down below, of course, much of which is based around the real estate and what's transpiring there. So if you really want to dive into the deeper details of what I'm talking about, by all means, scroll down to my newsletter, check it out, or if you don't have a copy of that newsletter, reach out to me and I'd be more than happy to share that with you. I'm going to be reflecting a lot on the information in there. In particular, I'm going to start with the CUAR, its recent September update. Now we're in October, and of course they've reflected on the fact that we have huge demand. Sales are down from what we had the previous September, but they did highlight the fact that last September was record highs. So it's not really fair to say, oh, sales are down, and it's looking like this may be one of our best or highest years of sales out there. So just because we're down as far as number of sales does not really truly reflect a down market at all. And I would say instead it actually reflects quite the opposite. There's just huge demand, and we may not have enough inventory out there to meet the demand of everybody that's looking to buy a home. In particular, I reflect on the new build options out there. When I check our database for what's available, I recall, especially being that I worked for a builder for about 5+ years, that we always seem to have some inventory. Well, we wouldn't necessarily put it all out to the open market any given moment, so we didn't flood the market. I knew that I had so many new lots coming available, and I'd hopefully get those released within, depending on how quickly my sales were, I could pretty much get them released whenever I want. That is not the case out there nowadays. Yes, there is a lot of new build projects coming about, but be careful, especially when you're dealing with a lot of these high rises. You might think, oh, well, there's a great opportunity, and that's not the case. And quite often, those are already pre-sold, or they're being held onto by the owner of the building to sell in the future at higher market values. So really, there isn't the inventory that we would like to see out there. I'm going to share with you just a brief synopsis that our brokers put together that kind of reflects on what's been transpiring, at least for the month of September. And as you can see, the big one that kind of catches a lot of our eyes is the right here, the 792,000. So the average sale price in Kitchener-Waterloo, inclusive of our detached homes and everything else, is $792,000, which is astronomical. We're looking at 24% increase as opposed to what our average sale of homes was last year, and this is inclusive of everything. Now, if you want to get into the finer details, get down here and look at our single detached homes, and we're pushing close to the $1 million mark, just shy of that. Now, keep in mind, depending on who's pulling the stats, you'll look at the board stats, Peak Real Estate stats, the CREA's stats, and they're all relatively the same. You might see 978, 958, but they're all kind of in that same ballpark. It depends on where they're pulling their stats from. So just keep that in mind as you're looking, and that will help hopefully explain why you're seeing slightly different averages for each of these homes. But again, they're all in the same ballpark, same with the price increases. Now, the largest one is down here in the townhome section at almost 36%. And this is where a little bit of hands and feet on the ground, personal experience might help you better understand why are townhouses increasing at such rapid percentage points as opposed to per se the single detached homes. It's not a case of people don't want the detached homes. It's just a case of what people qualify for. Being a mortgage agent, that's a big part of buying real estate. Almost everybody I've ever dealt with, for the most part, has required a mortgage. Now, here in Canada, we have to abide by what we call stress test numbers, and you can't just go to the bank and say, I'd like to get $600,000. They're going to look at your income and a bunch of other scenarios. They're going to say, okay, based on that, this is what you qualify for, okay, based on the stress test and whatever else. And that's the problem we're finding right now, is that so many people are trying to, either move up or, for many people, just trying to get a home, stop renting and throwing all their money away. And the issue we're having is that there's only so many homes available, which was traditionally the townhouse. And I guess that what we might happen to see, especially these townhouses are going up and up in prices, more and more buyers are bidding for these townhouses, and that they're going to perhaps start to peak. And we're going to start to see things like the condos go more and more so up. And a lot of people say, well, no, I don't want to live in a condo. It's not going to accommodate my family. Unfortunately, it may be all that you qualify for. So it's either going to be a case of I can buy a condo, or I can just choose to keep on renting. I often reflect on Europe. For those of you who have been to Europe or many other places, inclusive of Asia, or even bigger cities like New York and wherever else. You'll find that the mass majority of the people living there have to live in some sort of multi-residential accommodation. So that, I fear, is kind of where we're going, and it's just going to be a bit of an adjustment for us and future generations. So there you go. The other thing I'd like to share with you is, as realtors, we often meet on a weekly basis to do more or less a deep dive into what's transpiring out there, because we only deal with so many different transactions from one week to the next, and we really want to keep our hands on the pulse of the market. So I'm going to share with you another spreadsheet that we put together. It's a lot more information and data there, but for those of you that like this type of information, hopefully you'll find that insightful. So let's switch over to that. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of information here. I'd just like to highlight perhaps a couple key points. In particular, as we discussed earlier, prices are going higher and higher, and we ask, well, why is that? Now, some are attributing this to the fact that we have here in Ontario in Canada what we call the blind auction system. So the idea is that you don't necessarily know the details of your competitors, and you do pretty much a blind auction. Everybody throws in their best bid, and the seller picks and chooses based on that best bid. Now, one of the things that was brought up by the Liberal government during the recent election, federal election, was the idea that we would change up the way we're doing real estate or selling real estate from an a blind auction system to an open bidding system. So by open bidding system, we mean that you will now know the particulars of your competitors. So, if you take a house and it's listed at 500,000 and you're putting an offer at 550,000, and you will be notified that your competitor has offered a price at 560. And I'm not entirely sure how the dynamics of that would work, because often there's a lot more to it than just the price. Things like the closing date, what's included with the home, such as appliances, hot tubs, whatever else. And then of course there's just the fact that the client might have a better financial standing. Maybe they're putting down 30% on the home as opposed to merely 5%. But all that aside, at this point in time, we are not into the open bidding system. So there is a lot of reflection as to, will that help ease the issue of this lack of housing and the rapid rise of homes? If you look here at this little chart, you'll see that a lot of these homes are selling list to sell ratio, so list price to sell ratio, 115% or so as the average, and especially in the lower price ranges, I've got 18, almost 19% above list price is what some of these homes have been selling for. Now, it does fluctuate from week to week, as you can see here, but as you can see recently, it seems to be on the rise. But again, be careful, don't pay too much attention to just one little area. Let's look at the averages. Down here, you could always argue, oh, well, look at that. If I buy between 1.3 and 1.5, I should be able to perhaps get a discount because these homes actually sold at 96.63. But it's just a case of what sold that week. As you can see here, we only actually had one sale. So it's very easy for those percentages to fluctuate from week to week. Looking at the week prior, we actually were selling in that same price range at 105%. Hence, you'd be paying more or less 5% above list price. But these are all just averages, so be careful with that. It might have been the case somebody paid 10% above list price, and somebody else might have paid 3% under list price. The bigger issue here is, in my opinion, is not so much the way that we buy and sell houses. It's the fact that we don't have enough inventory. So if you look a little higher here on my sheet, you'll see that this last week, and we do it week by week as a brokerage, we actually did increase our inventory. So the number of homes available by about 24, hence we show about 415 homes, whereas the week prior we had 391 homes, which was also on the rise. Okay, and you can see the week before that it was again a slight increase. So we do seem to be having a bit of an increase in inventory, which is a really good sign. But as my broker has indicated here in his notes below here, that as we get into the Christmas season, we usually find that we start to get less homes available on the market, and we do find there's a bit of an influx of buyers that are in that shopping mood. And so unfortunately, as much as we're appreciating a little bit of a reprieve, it's probably going to be short-lived. And that being said, we are still at record lows. I believe we have in here so much data, but I think we're looking more or less 2.5 weeks worth of inventory, which is record lows for us as far as what's available. So yeah, we'll wait to see what transpires with regards to this open versus blind auction system there. But I've actually got a little article further down that talks a little bit more about that, and it actually talks about Australia, who's also seeing crazy high price increases across their country there, and yet they adhere to the open auction system. So according to this article, don't hold your breath. As much as you think that might help alleviate the problem, I don't think that's going to be the case. Really, what we do need is an inventory increase, and I'm not really seeing much hope on the horizon there. So who knows? If you're going to buy, I've also indicated some other articles down below where it talks about the pros and cons of should I rent versus buy. I've got a lot of buyers that just become very disfranchised with the whole system. So again, I'm just going to keep on renting. And that's definitely their prerogative. And there are some definite pros to renting as opposed to owning. But I would argue that there's a lot more pros to owning a home. And from a purely mathematical standpoint, there was a recent poll that was put together, or not so much a poll, a study that was put together by Roll LePage, and then actually evaluates, even at these higher prices, does it make sense from a financial standpoint to own a home as opposed to renting? And again, every person's situation is unique, every home is unique, every city is unique, but for the most part, according to their studies, it does make more sense to own a home as opposed to renting. One thing they highlight is the fact that, yes, while it might cost you more to own a home, as mortgage payments are more and you got property taxes and whatever else, keep in mind a significant chunk of that is going towards principal. They also highlight in this article, again, you can read below there, which I posted in my newsletter, that even if homes did not continue to accelerate, a lot of people think, oh, I want to see capital growth. I want to see this house increase in value. Even if it did not do that, it's purely just a case of you paying the mortgage payment. You would actually be in a much better situation. So if you'd like to dive into that, into your situation, I do know I've got a lot of renters out there that think, oh, it makes more sense to rent, but perhaps you're missing part of the equation that we should perhaps discuss. So by all means, feel free to give me a call, email, whatever. I'd love to talk to you. I love helping people. Or if you got a family member or a friend or a colleague at work that just really needs a little bit of assistance understanding why does it make more sense to own as opposed to rent, and especially from a financial perspective, have them reach out to me. It'd be my pleasure to assist them there. Okay. But anyways, as you can see here, in the lower price ranges, anywhere from 500,000 up to $1 million, or especially up to about 800,000, 900,000, we see significant percentage increases above the sale price. Now, one thing that is causing this, which many people I find are not aware of, which I'm somewhat surprised by, as we've been doing this for a while, is that we tend to list houses under market value, especially in the lower price ranges where there is a higher demand, as there's just more buyers that can afford to purchase in that price point. Why would people do that? Well, because they want to get the job done quickly. They don't want people renegotiating on things like inspections and trying to renegotiate the sale of the home. Just peace of mind having it done very quickly. As you can see, on our recent stats, I think the sheet I showed you earlier there, the average home is only on the market 10 days. Why? Well, huge demand, but it's partially the fact that we were just underlisting them, which is creating an influx of buyers, which is giving really putting the seller in the control seat, being able to pick and choose which offers would be the most desirable to them. Hence, when you look at these percentages, why, Dan, are houses selling 11%, 15%, 19% over list? Yes, it is partially based on the fact that there's just significant demand. But the other part of it is that we are underselling. I can give you numerous examples of condos and townhouses and detached houses where we have comps that are almost identical, and you'll see the sale price and you say, Dan, this doesn't make any sense. Why is it listed $50,000 to $75,000 less than their neighbor when the home's almost identical? It's because if you look at what the neighbor house sold, they actually listed also about 75,000 or 50 or 100, $150,000 under the market or under what they sold for. They got that price. So the thought process is, hey, what if I do the same thing and I can hopefully get the same results or perhaps even better results? And that's what we're finding is happening now. So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it is a case of what's happening out there. And I find that to some degree, knowledge is power. Rather than wasting your time and getting your emotions going up and down through the cycles of what happens there, it's a good idea for us to, I find with my clients, to sit down and review the recent sales so they can assess the market and at least have a better understanding of what's happening out there. Doesn't mean that we can stop it, but at least we're not as discouraged. So yeah, if you have any friends or family that would like to perhaps sit down and discuss things, we can do it over Zoom. So if they don't want to come meet my office, I'm happy to be back in the office now. I do love to meet face to face, but I realize that we are in a technologically advanced era and people like to meet online via Zoom, and I'm very comfortable with that. I do, to be honest, the bulk of my real estate and mortgage transactions online because, hey, people just appreciate doing it that way. So by all means, if you have anybody who would like to meet up, let me know, and it'd be my pleasure to arrange a time to dive into the deeper details of real estate. And if you would like an update on the value of your home, again, it'd be my pleasure to help you out with that. Have yourself a great day.